What's up, guys? You are listening to The Lifestyle Hub, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and into the journeys of inspiring individuals to not only educate you, but unlock your very own potential to live a more healthy, active, and fulfilling life. I'm your host, Jason Grimmer. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get this show on the road. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, the leading home and commercial gym specialist in the Middle East, Ghana Fitness Supplies. Check them out at www.ghana.ae for all your fitness needs. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in on episode 2, I should say. And I'm very, very excited to introduce our first ever guest, Priti Malik, whose voice is heard across the UAE every morning on Dubai's #1 radio station, Virgin Radio, on the Kris Show. Welcome, Priti.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Honored. This
is pretty surreal because I was saying, normally it's you in this position.
Yes.
And now the tides have turned.
Yeah, I have to remind myself, this is your podcast. I just have to listen to what you're saying.
You could take over at any minute, though.
I'm going to try not to.
So when people come onto the podcast, as you know, you are the first, but I want to make it something that happens every single episode. The first thing I'm going to ask our guests is, if someone asks you what you do for a living, how would you answer it?
I talk a lot for a living.
Talk a lot for a living.
That's what I do.
That answer would say otherwise, but we're about to find out. Amazing. So if listeners haven't already guessed, potentially from your accent,
yeah,
I'd like us to dig a little deeper, and we're going to paint a picture about who you are, where you're from, your background.
Okay.
So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay. So I was born and raised in the States. I'm from New York City. I'm a Queens girl. And I've literally lived in the same neighborhood my entire life before moving to Dubai. So I never lived anywhere else. And I moved to Dubai when I was 22. I grew up with an older sister. She's 6 years older than me. Ethnicity-wise, we're Indian. My parents moved to the States in the 70s. So they call the States home now. We don't have like a home in India or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we're very connected to our roots. We grew up very connected to our roots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. And I mean, how was it growing up in New York as a kid? Because for a lot of people, it's just when we see it on the movie sets, but then to know that there's actually a real life that exists there. What's that like?
So I have to say I'm really, truly privileged to have been born and raised in Queens. It is the most multicultural place that you will find, I think, on this planet Earth. I think we speak the most languages there. Yeah. And I was blessed to grow up with obviously the education that we had in school, but the education of culture as well, just by the byproduct of living where I lived. So in my class, we had someone from all over the world, and I grew up learning about everyone's culture. So when I moved to Dubai, I already knew so much about cultures. Yes. And it was such a natural thing, like where, everyone's American, but they have a Korean heritage. Yes. Or a Kenyan heritage, or, wherever you're from. So right. I was blessed to grow up with that. Amazing. And yeah, it is what you think it is. I mean, I went from riding a bike to riding the subway very, very quickly.
Yes.
We walked everywhere. We took the train, the bus, everywhere. And that's kind of how we live life.
Yeah, interesting. And how does the traffic stack up? Is it as bad as it looks?
Yeah, you don't drive when you're from New York.
Only the cabs drive.
Yeah,
apparently.
Why would you drive? Yeah. Now, I don't know. Now it's a different story, but yeah.
And what would you say is one of like a memorable experience or growing up memory that you had back in New York before I cross over?
Growing up, I loved just the city. Just walking around. Just walking in Manhattan or the city, what you guys see on TV.
Yeah.
Just as a kid growing up is just like the coolest thing.
Yes.
And that's my playground.
Yeah.
Like that's where I grew up, And that's really cool to just have. It's a very hard feeling to kind of transcribe into words.
Yes.
It's a feeling that you get. And I think that's a connection everyone has with home.
For
it's
sure.
a feeling that you can't really put into words. So for me, New York is always going to be home no matter where I live around the world.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, amazing. Like I've never been, so
you'd hate it.
I still can't picture it. I don't know what I would be able to expect. And obviously coming from like probably the polar opposite, which is just like almost just trees and greenery.
Yeah.
New York does have a lot of greenery though.
Where?
What's the park? Where's
Central Park.
How big's Central Park?
It's very big, but
I'm going to sound like a total novice because I don't know
listen,
the size, but it's big.
It's big, but for us, like growing up, right, like a school trip would be to a park because my schoolyard did not have grass.
Okay.
So we'd like go to grass as like a school trip.
And that wasn't Central Park. There were other parks around the city.
We have a few. Yeah, we have a few. But like our trees are literally planted in concrete.
Okay. True. That's something I'll need to get my head around.
Yes.
For sure. It is on the list. I know I've spoken about going there over Christmas at some time. So I think, is that as beautiful as it looks?
It is amazing, but knowing you would absolutely hate it. It's way too fast for you.
Okay. We'll see. I'll try it out and then I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
So, okay. New York, I'm from Brisbane, Australia, America, and then we've got Dubai.
Yeah.
Both, I think, are almost equal distances away. How did you end up with, let's say, your sights on Dubai, but then how did you end up actually living over in Dubai?
It's a story that no one believes, but it's the truth. Okay. So I graduated college when I was 21. Graduated early. I took 2 months off. And then after that, I was like, I'm going to work on air. So I did broadcasting in college. So I knew this is what I was going to do. And I was like, okay, I want a job either on a TV show or in radio, but I need something on air, not production, nothing. And even though I grew up in New York, which is like the hub of media, you have to realize people work 30 years before they get a foot in the door in New York City. That's the Mecca, Yeah. But you have to work in other markets before you can get there. I tried my luck. I wasn't getting anything. I had a cousin at the time who was from Dubai, who grew up in Dubai. He was doing his master's in New York. And he goes, why don't you apply to this Bollywood radio station in Dubai as a newsreader?
Yeah.
I was like, who's going to move to Dubai? And I was like, fine, I'll just apply. Let's just see. What's the worst that's going to happen, right?
Yes.
And I was like, do you know anyone? And he goes, no, but I know the name of a newsreader that I used to hear. His name is Sachin Kumbar. I still keep in touch with him. And I said, okay, do you have an email address? And he goes, no, but try this.
Yes.
So we took a complete blind shot in the dark. And I said, okay, it didn't bounce back. So the email went through. And literally 2 weeks later, I got an email back saying, hey, you sound too American for our Bollywood station, understandably so. But we've just launched a brand new English station, Virgin Radio.
Wow.
And we're looking for a newsreader for our English news services that includes Dubai 92, Dubai Eye here in the country. And we can try you out for that. Amazing. And I got the job.
So, and that was at the same time Virgin Radio came to Dubai?
Yeah, so 2008 is when Virgin Radio launched. I applied for the job in March 2008.
Wow.
And I moved here by the time all the paperwork and everything was done. Obviously, this is a very different age. It's 2008. So I moved here in August 2008.
Wow. And you've been with Virgin ever since?
Yeah. I came with the job. Yeah.
Incredible. Because it's come so far from there.
Yeah.
Sure. You've seen a lot. Especially in Dubai itself, right?
Yeah,
the
for sure.
city's changed quite a lot.
Oh, yeah. It was completely different when I got here.
So, okay. In that case, talk to us a little bit more about how life was when you first got here.
Okay.
Because then we'll kind of go into detail about how your life looks now.
Okay,
I'm sure it's changed a lot. Not only Dubai, but your lifestyle, your day-to-day.
Yeah. So I had only visited Dubai when I was 3. Okay, I've never visited Dubai. And here I am.
What was your interpretation of Dubai? Like, obviously you were young then, but say someone in New York and you said Dubai, what would they think? Because back home it was sand.
I don't
so
think.
What did you guys think?
I don't even think many people knew back then what Dubai was.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, in India? And I'm like, it's not in India. Relax. It's another place.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much about it. All I knew was what my cousins told me, Like, I really didn't. And I had no memory of visiting. And here I am convincing my parents I'm going to move to Dubai without being there.
Yeah.
And when I got here, it was very busy. Trying to get a taxi was really hard. Trying to get an apartment was really hard. I couldn't find anything that was like a budget apartment. It was really hard. I ended up finding a studio apartment in Dara. It was probably the size of the room that we're in, my entire apartment from start to finish.
And you came over solo?
Yeah, my parents did come with me initially because a cousin of mine lived here.
Yes.
And I stayed with her for like a month or two until I found a place.
Okay.
And then when I did, I moved in and then it was just me on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was very, very different place. Downtown really didn't exist. The Burj Khalifa was not done yet.
Yeah.
Like all of that didn't exist. JBR was mostly just sand.
Wow.
There were just so many things that the metro wasn't there. There was nothing really here.
Incredible, because I can't even imagine that. So I think I came on the back end of everyone getting to Dubai. Dubai was pretty much almost as you see it. I mean, of course, if you live here, you'll notice all the new details that pop up every few months. But I think to imagine it in the way that you'd kind of first seen it is incredible.
Yeah, and I think it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really, I imagine that for everyone. it's hard because
It
it's
is hard
lonely.
it is definitely difficult when you first get here. But I think, how did you find transitioning between New York and Dubai? Dubai being not the city that it is now, because someone could argue there's more similarities now.
Yes, definitely now. I think initially I was really like, fine, I was struggling. Okay. I'm used to walking everywhere, taking buses.
Yeah.
And at that time, it wasn't, I mean, it's well connected, the city, but it wasn't as well connected as it is now with the metro.
Yes.
So for me, the idea of having to drive everywhere was just a foreign concept. It's not the way that I lived.
Yeah.
And it was very hard. And there weren't that many Americans as well. So it was
True.
really hard for me to connect that side of my life.
Yes.
Like a lot of people didn't quite understand what was going on, you know?
Yes.
So it was difficult to say for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because, it is a hard transition when you first get over it,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, you've transitioned quite well. I think it's
Yeah,
safe to
okay.
say. So
Yeah.
how would you say a day today looks like for you right now?
Okay,
Talk to
so
us.
my morning till 1 p.m. is exactly the same 5 days a week.
Okay.
And then after that, it's all up in the air. So my morning is I wake up, I go do the show, I finish the show, and then I go to the gym and I have this trainer. It's quite annoying. His name is Jason. And so we train, you and I train.
That we do train.
11:30.
That's right.
5 days a week. If to anyone who's listening and is like mind blown by that, yes, Jason is my trainer.
I am pretty sure. This is why this whole setting is so new to us. You were actually laughing at me before we click record.
Yes.
That I've got the headphones. I'm sitting behind a microphone with an iPad.
Yeah.
With a script. So
Yeah.
yes,
It's very different. But yeah, so my
So you hit the gym.
11:30, and is very, very important to me, and I try to make sure that sticks.
Yes.
And then after that, it could be anything. I could be hosting something, I could be filming something, I could be editing something, I could be interviewing someone, I could be doing something for the show. It could be anything at all, and it just varies day to day.
Yeah. Okay. So it is like you can't really predict.
No.
Or even though your morning's quite set.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that's the same is that morning half, and then
Yes.
after that, it's a brand new day.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you touched on radio, because I think it's something that I'd like to try and dive in deeper in with you now. Because
Okay.
I think it's an area or an industry that a lot of people don't really know about.
Yeah.
Like they just hop in the car and they turn the radio on
Yeah.
and they listen to the voices coming through the speakers. And a lot of the times those people will become their best friends, or they're de-stressed from on the way to work or the way home from work. And I used to listen to the radio quite a bit, but back in Australia, more so here because now I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
But you kind of don't ever think, how did they get into that position?
Yeah.
Or you never, rarely will you sit with someone at school and say, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And someone's like, oh, fireman, or like, a sports teacher.
Yeah.
And then a radio host, I feel like I'd not sat in a room with anyone else who said that. So I wanted to know, like, what inspired you to get into radio? And was it on your bucket list as a kid? Is that where you wanted to be?
Okay, so this is a story as well. So I was 16, and that's kind of the time when everyone starts thinking about college.
Yeah.
And a lot of my family went into the medical field. Like my sister is a physician's assistant. My cousins are like surgeons, anesthesiologists, and all that stuff. Very smart, not me. And I was like, well, what do I do with my life? Like medicine is not for me.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. I love talking. So I thought, law, I'll be a lawyer.
Interesting.
And that's what I had thought, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work out that way. And when I was 16, this is the advantage of growing up in New York City. At MTV, there used to be a show called Total Request Live. This is back in the day.
Okay.
And it was a live, I think, an hour show hosted by Carson Daly. And they would do the top 10 music videos every day that people would vote for.
Okay.
And they'd have like guests, like the Backstreet Boys, like everyone they can think of.
Yes.
Any actor that was big promoting anything, they would be there. And you can have a live audience on the street in Times Square.
Yes.
So we had a half day from school one day, and we decided, let's go to Times Square and let's go to MTV.
Okay.
Because we have time.
Yeah.
So we went in and we're standing outside. I think the Harry Potter kids were there that day.
Wow.
And we were standing on the street, and one of the VJs, or like the presenters, came down. Her name is Hillary Burton, and she used to be on One Tree Hill. Peyton, that's her name,
Yes.
on One Tree Hill. So
For
you
those
guys
who
can
know.
connect it's too old for you,
It might be
Jason.
just.
So she came down and she did a live link in front of the camera. It's all live. So we're standing in the background and watching her do this. And it was like, in a cartoon when the light bulb goes on, that was it.
Loved it.
And I was like, that's it. This is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I went home that day after that experience, and I started Googling what like the news guys, the MTV news guys did in college to get to this position. And I started doing some research, and I realized that they majored in broadcast journalism. So I knew then that that's what I was going to do, 100%. And I was lucky enough that my high school had a program where in the last semester of your senior year, because we finished all of our credits, you were allowed to do an internship 5 days a week instead of going to school, done by our school.
Amazing.
And I got an internship at a radio station in New York. And since then, since I was like 17, 18, I've been working in radio.
Do you think having gone into an internship rather than behind, like, you know, at a desk and studying helped accelerate your career the way it did, especially at the age that you've been exposed to such like a prolific position?
Yeah. I was a promotions intern. So that basically means I take care of the prizes.
Yeah.
But I quickly took on other roles within the company.
Amazing.
Because I was just so interested.
Yeah.
And I was one of the youngest interns, but I was in charge of the interns. Like I would tell them like where to go, what to do, what's happening. I would host movie theater premieres at that age, give out prizes, do all that kind of stuff. And in college, because I majored in broadcast journalism, a lot of our learning was very technical.
Okay.
So we had a lot of hands-on, those were our classes, like those were our courses. We had to learn how to operate a camera. We had to learn how to operate a microphone, write a script, and do all that stuff. So my learning has always been very hands-on.
Amazing. I think it depends on different learning abilities too, but I think I can relate to you in the sense that I also went straight into my field at an early age, and it was just hands-on. And I think it just drives your passion, and like it grows your passion, and you become like almost like a master at that field before a lot of people even finish reading about it. Like one of my mates went through uni and he did, it's kind of the same that I did, but he'd read all the books for 4 years, and I'd actually been in the gym training people 4 years, and we both had totally different experiences. I'd had a hands-on experience where I was applying different things, and he just had the textbooks. So I think it was quite cool that you managed to go through all the hands-on side.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's probably helped you a lot now.
Oh, 100%. There's no way I would have gotten this job if I didn't have all that hands-on experience.
Yeah.
That's why whenever I talk to like students, I say like, and I ask like, what do you want to do? It's like, okay, I want to do law. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like, okay, so did you apply for any internships?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, I ask why.
Yes.
So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to have this experience? Because it gives you a leg up. Like you started so early in your journey, you wouldn't have gotten to this position so early in your age if you didn't have that hands-on experience, because you can walk into a job and say, yeah, I've got 4 years of experience and you have something to show for it.
That's right.
You know, so it makes a huge difference for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So how did your parents take this? Because I mean, of course, I think everyone's parents have certain hopes and dreams for their kids. So how did that conversation go? You came home and said, hey, mom and dad, guess what?
Yeah. So I have Indian parents, and I think a lot of times the stereotype with Indian parents is, how could you not be a doctor, lawyer, engineer type situation? I think my parents are very different in that sense. My dad's super hardworking. He never got to go to college, and he's worked hard for everything that he's had, but he's always been passionate about whatever he's been doing. And even when we were studying in growing up, and I was cramming for like a test the night before, he'd always look at me and he goes, what are you doing staying up so late? And I was like, I got a test tomorrow. He goes, just leave it. It's fine. It's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You might fail. You might get, I don't know, a lower score. So what? You try harder than the next one. You'll learn your lesson and you'll do it, earlier the next time. So when I said, hey, I'm going to major in broadcast, they were like, we have no idea about this. Do you know enough about it? And I was like, yeah, I've done my research. Do you think you can make a career out of it? Very naive then. And I was like, yeah, of course I can.
I got this.
Me and Hillary are going to be BFFs.
Yes, mates.
And he goes, okay, as long as you know what you're doing, because you have to do it for the rest of your life, not me.
Yeah.
So if you know what you're going to do, cool.
Love that.
Yeah. And that's the attitude I've always had, which is quite a blessing. And it's really helped me kind of get to this point in my career, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So credit to dad on that one.
For sure. Yeah.
Giving you the reins.
Yeah. My pops. Yeah.
Love that. So that being said, what do you love most about your day today? And I think before you break that down, there's a lot of people who haven't had the luck to listen to the Kris Fade Show yet because they might not be in the country. So give us a little bit quick summary on like, what does your morning entail? What does the show bring to the listeners of the UAE?
So we are a top 40 radio station, which means we play the popular music that you hear, the Justin Biebers and the Post Malones and stuff like that. And we're entertainment focused, but we look at the community as well, what's happening locally. We talk about our personal lives a lot. Most of the content is driven from our personal lives, things that have happened in our life. We do prank phone calls. We do funny challenges where you have to eat like a disgusting, smelly fish from around the world or, whatever it is. I do a lot of the entertainment news. So I follow a lot of the celebrity stuff that's going on. I also still read the news, but I'm not part of the news team anymore. I'm just a co-host. So that's kind of like our show.
Yes.
It's a little mixed bag of everything. We can be crying one moment and laughing another moment. And that's kind of the cool thing about our show. It's just a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can listen to our show outside of the country. After you listen to this podcast, you can listen to our podcast, which is the Kris Fade Show.
Which I love that you do that actually, because it summarizes. Sometimes and I've tuned into a podcast or two before, or I listen to the replay in the evening, right? Because I miss the morning slot. So it's good to hear that it's on quite regularly. So you guys check that out for sure.
Yeah.
And then given that, you're behind the scenes a little bit. I know you're in there early.
Yes.
Because I want to talk about your work hours and what's challenging about that position. So talk to us. What do you find challenging about that role? Because it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
No, it's definitely not. Sleep is the biggest battle. Sleep is the root of all evil. Like if you don't have enough of it, that's where most of everyone's problems kind of stem from.
That's right.
And I have been doing a breakfast show since I was 19.
Wow.
And I'm nearly 37 now.
Do the math, guys. That's a lot of missed sleep.
Yes. So I have literally been doing these hours for a very long time.
Okay.
A 6 a.m. show start. So a 6 a.m. show start.
Break it down. Yes.
I wake up at about 3:45. And on a day where I want to snooze, I'll wake up maybe at 4:15. But my aim is to get to the studio anywhere between 4:45 and 5 a.m. And then I set up the show. I edit any audio that I need, anything that needs to be checked. I get it done. I get my gossip stories done. I get the news bulletin done. And I have all of that prepared before the boys walk through the door. I have two co-hosts. Yeah. So before they walk through the door.
They stroll in, croissant in hand.
And here you
Snacks,
go.
Coffee.
Here you go, guys. And
you've been up.
I don't put the show together. I have to give Rossi credit for that. He puts the show together and he tells us what's on the show and what's happening.
Perfect.
But I'm kind of the one we're making sure we're on track and, Well, I mean, we all do that.
I mean, it's a team effort, right? I think that's why it works so well, because you guys all have your roles and you know what's responsible. And
and also Kris Fade is just so good at steering the ship and like steering the show in the direction that it needs to go in. And he's really good at picking moments and things like that. And it's really good to find a team that you love. Because if you don't love each other, imagine being on 4 hours of sleep and seeing someone you hate every single day.
I mean, that would be tough. How long have you been with the boys on this show?
So Kris, I've pretty much known since I got to Dubai.
Okay.
And I started appearing on the show probably at the end of 2009.
Yeah.
So I've known him for 15 years, nearly. Okay. And Rossi, I've known probably since like 2011. Okay. So it's really long time. So I mean,
it's still a long time to be close proximity, professional, going through life's motions together.
Yeah. Best friends.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
What's the most memorable thing that you've had and have had happen to you on the show? I know there's probably an absolute list of them.
Yeah.
And that could also translate to like celebrity appearances. I know you were serenaded by somebody pretty special last year. Was it last year?
John Legend. Yeah.
But talk to us about that, because I think that's something that, again, people only ever dream to meet these people.
Yeah.
They watch them on TV. They listen to the gossip bulletin, and that's all they'll ever really know.
Yeah.
You actually get to sit and chat, sometimes dance with certain people. Tell us about that. What are the highlights? What's the most memorable?
I have to say Will Smith is probably one of the most memorable, only because he was so nice.
Okay.
I know all the controversy, but I have to say...
The recent controversy.
Yeah, but I have to say, when the cameras are off and no one is watching, he is the nicest human you have met. Yeah. Like, just the nicest. Usually the A-list stars are super nice. The Ushers, Will Smiths, John Legend, like you name it.
Yeah.
You name J-Lo. Like you name all these big celebrities, Kim Kardashian, Kris Jenner, Khloe Kardashian.
Yes.
Like all these guys are just class acts. They're so lovely. They're so kind, and they don't have to be.
Yes.
They don't have to be that nice when the cameras are off.
That's right.
You know, they don't have to have a conversation with you.
Yes.
They don't have to actively try to get to know you.
Exactly.
But they are genuinely really nice, like really nice people.
Okay.
But if you say memorable moments, I think the most memorable has to be being proposed to live on air.
Love that.
Out of all
when I was thinking of this, I was trying to think back to all of the moments that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I love that you chose that one.
Yeah,
because that's not, I wasn't thinking that. That's pure. That's very pure.
So it was a live proposal.
By
my husband. No, sorry, I should say who, right?
Obviously.
Yeah, sorry,
let's give Jeffy a little bit of an intro.
Jeff and James, this is your shout out and your only shout out possibly in this. He proposed to me live on air. Like he walked in and it was such a surprise. I was dressed terribly.
You had no idea.
I know, well, clearly not. If you look at the video, it's terrible. It's terrible. Wow. Like I'm not wearing any shoes. I have my glasses on. Like the shirt is terrible. It's horrible.
And he would have had some inside help on this because it would have had to be timed perfectly. So Chris was the wingman.
Yeah.
Set it up live on air.
Yeah.
You cried.
Of course.
Of course you cried.
Yeah, of course I did.
You know what? Like knowing Jeffy the way I do now, I think what he did takes a lot of courage. Like to go on air, any sort of proposal, is a life-changing moment. So props to him on that one. And obviously something that you clearly remember.
Yeah, for sure. Love
that. So Priti, I wanted to kind of also, there's a whole nother world to you outside of radio. So people think maybe you pack up the suitcase and you head home at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
But you don't.
No.
Your day is like go.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier, talk to us about how your afternoon looks. I know that you're doing a lot of like different events and stuff.
Yeah.
My question on those, as you elaborate, is how does the radio translate to speaking to live audiences?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a really interesting one that I wanted to kind of know a bit more about.
Well, when we're in our studio, you sometimes forget that there's an audience because you're working with your friends. Yeah. So you're just having a chat like we are now. When you're in front of a live audience, the energy is very different. You feed off the energy of the crowd and you can feel the adrenaline. I imagine it's what an athlete, you can tell me about this because I am not an athlete, so I don't know what it feels like, but it's the feeling of you're on the pitch, I guess, and you have the crowd roaring and you have this adrenaline pumping through you and you got to perform at your highest level.
Yes.
And then once it's done, you have the come down of like, okay, all the lights, all the cameras, all the crowd is kind of gone and you're kind of left with that little edge.
Yeah.
And then you're just left like buzzing and you're just like, wow, that was really cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Okay. So okay. And how have you felt that position grow on you? Like, has it been something you enjoyed more and more? Is it just the same? Do you have the same process every time you go through that same routine? You have to prep yourself for it. How does that work?
I've been doing it for so long now. It doesn't feel unnatural. Like it's very normal for me to speak in front of crowds.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of nervous energy because you want to make sure that the client is happy. The people that have booked you want to make sure you're saying all the right things. You follow a script or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You want to make sure the audience is having a good time. And since you're the MC of an event, it's in your hands how this goes.
Yes.
It could completely tank and it could be boring and it could be terrible, or they walk away with a memory from that evening or that day. So that's a lot of pressure on you.
Definitely.
But I think in the first 3 minutes, I'll know whether this is going to go well or if it's going to be terrible.
One of the ones where you'll have to give it some extra oomph to get it over the line.
Yeah, and those have happened plenty of times.
Well, based on that, a lot of, not only is it live, but like sometimes it's also then transferred to social media.
Yeah.
So not only are you on the radio, not only are you at live events across the city, but you're also on social media, and that's a huge part of your role as a personality and I would say an influencer and a presenter. Talk to us about like that side of life, because I think that's also changed a lot over the last 10 years, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, COVID changed my Instagram.
Yeah.
I started posting a lot more, and I started doing less curated content and where I'm like dressed and like makeup and hair because it's COVID. Like we're sitting at home.
Yeah.
And I just started posting more just what I was doing on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Not that I was shy about it before I held it private. I just didn't think to. I didn't know what kind of content people wanted to see from me.
I mean, it seemed less appropriate back then too, right? Do you think COVID dropped everyone's guard or standards a little bit?
I think so. And also I think it was more relatable and it's more me.
Yeah.
I'm not really I know I'm wearing makeup now. If you're watching this, it's because I have to go to an event afterwards.
There you go. Non-stop. This is what we said. Non-stop. From the show to this to an event.
But normally, you know me. I'm like a sweatpants, t-shirt kind of girl. And that's my life. That's the way I like to live it. And I started to share more of that. And I think it worked. And it worked with an audience, and I love sharing that. I don't feel like it's a job for me.
Yeah.
When it starts to feel like a job, I take a break. You may not see some stories for hours on end because that's like, okay, Priti going. I take a little break. I'll never post for the sake of posting.
Yeah.
you're going to see what's really happening with me.
Yeah.
And I love that about social media.
Yeah. I like that you show that and share that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think that's why your following's only growing and growing more each day, is because there's so much superficial things out there. So many things that make people probably increase their insecurities and their vulnerabilities, but you kind of put it all on the line. And I think, it's such an amazing thing. It's a brave thing to do as well.
Thanks.
And the shift towards TikTok Reels.
Yeah.
Definitely played to your advantage, because I'm going to say someone with such a skill at dance and choreography, how has that shaped because if you go to your feed now, you'll be dancing almost every 6 clips.
Yes.
At least, if not more.
At least, yeah.
If not more. So how did that play to your strength? Because where did dance come from?
So I've been dancing and performing since I was 3 years old.
Okay.
Bollywood
a
dancing.
hobby. Like a childhood activity.
I mean, all these kids were in sports. I was in dance.
Okay.
I feel like if you were South Asian, that's what you did.
You were dancing.
You were just dancing, because there were always community events for like Diwali and like holidays and stuff like that. And my aunt had a music school growing up. She's a singer. On my mom's side of the family, we have like trained singers, classical singers and musicians and stuff. My grandfather was a classical musician and singer. So we're a very, very musical family. We grew up always singing and having these big parties where these massive singers from Bollywood would come to my aunt's house and just sing in the house. And like we'd all grow up with that. So dance has always been a big part of my life. So the fact that I get to share that with an audience on Instagram around the world is like special to me, because it's very special to me. Like I was on dance teams, competitive dance teams in college and all that. So it's a big, big part of who I am.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of the dances that you pull off, how quickly you dance. So where I'm getting this is literally Priti will go from the show.
Yeah.
You'll get home and be like, I need to quickly film something. I need to learn this dance to choreograph. And you've got like half an hour before you get to the gym.
Yeah.
And I'll give credit to Jeffy here again, because I'm sure you both learn it within 5-10 minutes, right? And then film it and post it. Some of them.
I'm going to give you a secret. I learn it very quickly.
Okay.
I give Jeff like a week heads up.
So
I'll send him a video.
Okay, because I'm impressed with some of his moves, but so he's had a bit more time than
Yes, he needs more time.
Okay.
So I send it to him, and then he practices in his own time because he's too shy to do it in front of me.
Yeah.
And then I'll correct him, and then we'll dance.
Perfect. Love that. So highest viewed TikTok or Reel?
Just hit 3 mil. It's not you.
It's not me.
Sorry. You're second though.
We're
You're
second.
second. We're second. 3 mil, me surprising my nephews this past December.
That was a beautiful reel.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that hit 3 million views.
3 million views.
And 10 years ago, do you think 10 million people, did you say 30 million?
3
million.
Yeah.
Do you think 3 million people would have viewed
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Pretty crazy.
Social media. I didn't grow up with social media.
No, it's crazy.
We had like MySpace.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
like Facebook.
That. I was a part of that era.
Were you? Okay.
People won't believe it, but I had a Sony Walkman. We always say this. I had a Sony Walkman and MySpace.
Yeah.
There was Bebo as well, wasn't there? MSN.
Yes, MSN, like that's what I grew up with. So like
it's
the fact that 3 million people around the world that do not even know who I am have watched me go into my childhood home in New York City and surprise my nephews is insane.
It is insane.
Yeah.
It just shows where we are today.
Yeah.
And the reach that we have. And I guess it works out in both of our favors to different degrees, right?
For sure.
So what advice would you give to someone wanting to start in radio or any form of presenting and how they can use their social media to their advantage as well?
Okay, one thing, there's a few things that I'll say here. Number one is you have to be prepared to put in the hard work. When I was doing that internship that we talked about earlier, I would be sometimes waking up at 2:00 in the morning because I volunteered to set up for the breakfast show.
Yeah.
So that means I'd be up at 2:00 in the morning. I'd do whatever I needed to do for their show. Then I'd work the full day because I still had my regular, job as the intern. I had to get stuff done until 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And then be like, hey, we have a movie premiere. Do you want to host it? And I'd say yes.
Yeah.
But I've been up since 2 a.m.
Jeez.
But I was hungry. That's the only way I knew I could get ahead.
Yes.
So you have to be able to put in the work. You can't be like, this is beneath me. You can't be like, no job is too little.
That's right.
I've gotten coffee. I've gotten photos developed. Yes, that's the age that I grew up in, for people. Like I've done it all to get to where I am. So that's one thing, be prepared to work. The second thing is authenticity. If you're trying to just emulate what other people are doing, you will never make it far. You may have a good while where you are successful, but you won't be able to sustain it because you're living a lie. At some point, you're going to get tired of playing that character. So I feel like for me, this is my personal opinion. I feel like the more authentic you are, the more people connect with you because everyone has a story to tell. Even the person who works in accounting has a story to tell. Someone is going to connect with that story. Yeah. So why not tell your story? So those are two big pieces of advice that I would give.
Okay. And I think they're very valuable bits of advice. So if it is something that you wanted to pursue, then definitely take heed to those 2 points there. I love like going into the detail we have over the station and over your career and how your day looks. I want to go in a bit more detail about you as a person.
Okay.
And kind of talk to, you about how do you find it? This is pretty funny, but how do you find it balancing your books with Jeffy, who's a DJ?
Yeah. And
you guys are on basically polar opposite schedules with timing. How does that work? And like, obviously you guys have been married a long time now and it's a beautiful thing and you guys are amazing to be around and like, your energy, the two of you is great, but there's going to be some tough times there. How do you manage that schedule?
Okay. So when we were dating, it wasn't that bad because you're dating. So it's like it's fine. You just, you set things aside.
Yes.
It's fine.
You just make it happen.
You just,
you compromise
you're dating.
On sleep.
You're dating.
You spend
a
bit more. Yes.
It's the honeymoon period.
That's right.
Then we got married and I feel like things changed. And I think I have to admit, I feel like the first few years were really difficult and hard on us. There were a lot of arguments because I just couldn't understand why we weren't finding the time. And it's like, I would sacrifice my sleep. It's like, well, why can't you sacrifice going out or doing whatever it is, trying to find that time? And it was a real struggle, but I think we finally managed to find a place. I have to say now, Jeff doesn't really do club gigs, so it's quite different now.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're in a different position now.
Yeah.
And I think he's realized and I've realized that we do have to take more of an effort.
Yes.
I don't take naps anymore in the afternoon, so we have that time together. We work out together.
Yes.
And even though we're working out, that's still time spent together. That means time in the car getting there,
that's right.
Time in the car coming back, and it all adds up throughout the day. So it's about compromise. It's about working through the arguments and trying to figure out what works best for the both of you.
Yeah.
And then landing on, okay, let's try this. And that's going to change from month to month, year to year.
For sure.
It's going to constantly change because you change as a person. Your wants and needs change as a person too. So
that would be your advice. Compromise would be the key.
Yeah, you have to
balancing, a relationship with conflicting jobs or interests.
Yeah, I think so. I
agree.
I can't imagine a scenario where you don't compromise.
No, I think the best relationships are built on compromises from both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's important.
Yeah.
Now we traveled to Oz back in. I'm gonna feel bad if I don't remember this. The year it was 2019. 2019. We went back to our mutually good friends Nat and Jamie's wedding.
Yeah.
In Perth, Australia. Was that your first trip to Oz?
Mm-hmm.
It was. And for those who haven't been to Perth, it was my first time. I loved it. It's a pretty chilled country town, but it's classified as a city.
Is it a city? Is it a big city?
I mean, Brisbane's bigger.
Listen, Perth, don't come at me.
Yeah, I also don't want to say too much here. So I think we love the people of Perth.
Yes.
I loved Perth. How did you feel being in a country with so many... One, it's very different to New York.
Yes.
But where I'm angling this is you've got ants, you've got spiders, you've got bugs, you've got birds. Listeners who might not have followed you, over the last few years, tell them about your initial reaction to, let's say a spider walked across the table right now, or a bird just flew across the room. What would your reaction have been, let's say 2 years ago?
A lot of 4-letter words would fly out of my mouth.
Yes.
Like the New York would come out. You would have flown off the chair. Fast. The hoops would come off, the shoes would come off. I'd be ready for war. I was really nervous going to Australia.
Yeah.
Kris, who's obviously Kris Fade, he's showed me pictures and videos of stuff. You've sent me stuff.
Yes.
Jamie sent me stuff. Like, everyone sent me these things and I'm like, but I have to say in that whole trip, I don't think I ever really saw. The biggest thing was in Sydney when we went to the fish market.
The fish market.
The seagulls.
The seagulls, okay.
Like, do they not see humans?
Yeah, but you were scared of them because of just of what they were or different animals? Or was just you hadn't been around many animals growing up?
I don't know. Of course not. I lived in an apartment my whole life. So even cats, like you never saw them.
Yeah, so I remember we had a dinner party once at a friend Kel's.
Yeah.
And she's like, I need to take the cats and put them upstairs because Priti doesn't like cats. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like from Australia, you think everyone likes every animal.
Yeah.
Like, it's all good and well.
Yeah.
So I remember you came around and the cats were upstairs.
Yeah.
And then when you guys left, it was like, oh, the cats can come out now.
Yeah.
So now you have a 30-kilo dog,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
who chills in your bed.
Yes.
How did we transition? Because there's a lot of people that probably suffer from a similar fear. And now you've gone and got a 32-kilo beautiful golden retriever.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. How did you transition?
Hypnotherapy. That was what changed my life. Honestly, that's what changed my life.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, so it was hypnotherapy. So we were doing a bit on the show. You asked me earlier what we do on the show. We do stuff like this.
Yeah.
We found a hypnotherapist who wanted to come on the show. And they said, we'll do a live hypnotherapy session. And we kind of had a conversation beforehand and said, well, who wants to go through this? Who has the big fears?
Fear.
Obviously, it's me. I'm afraid of everything. So they were like, why don't you get rid of your fear of cats? Because my fear of cats is superior to any other fear.
Okay.
I'm afraid of dogs, but I have an affinity towards dogs. I've always loved dogs, but I was very scared of them. Cats, I would get panic attacks. So I was like, cool, I'll do hypnotherapy to get rid of my fear of cats. So we did it live on the radio. We did one session. And it was really intense. And she looked at me and she was like, I think you should come in for another one. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come for another one. And then I went for another session. And I kid you not, like after that, the next day I was like petting dogs. Don't ask me how it cured my fear of dogs. Because I feel like subconsciously, maybe I wanted it to cure my fear of dogs. Because I've always wanted a dog, but I was scared. So it subconsciously did that.
Wow.
And I started being okay with dogs. And
that's incredible. I never knew that.
Yeah. And only up until a few months ago was I okay with cats now, because I've had a dog for nearly 2 years now. I finally understand animals more now.
Yes.
So now I can go up to a horse and pet it. And I mean,
you're pulling toys out of Loki, my husky's mouth.
Yeah.
We know that he's a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
And you had no problem.
No.
And remember, there's been a few times I've been like, can you believe that you just pulled that out of his mouth? Or you just, pulled him over here without hesitation?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So we'll give hypnotherapy.
Yes.
So that would be a bit of advice for somebody?
Do it.
Give it a go?
But you have to be committed. Like I walked into that room and I was like, I want this to cure my fear.
Yeah.
If you're not committed, it's not going to work.
Okay.
There's no way.
I need to do that for roller coasters.
I never want to get over that fear. Who wants to? I just think of Final Destination. I was like, that's how I'm going to die.
I don't know how my kids are going to enjoy their childhood, because
they can go on their own.
They will have to. I'll be having churros.
They'll be all right.
And just watching them.
Yes.
Just go again, kids.
Yeah, that's
I ain't
fine.
coming.
Yeah.
A lot of people, who listen to the podcast are outside of Dubai, and Dubai has a lot of stereotypes that the outside world can see. But we kind of, I would say, I mean, you live a slightly more exciting lifestyle than me because of your job, et cetera, and your company. But what would you say, how would you summarize Dubai to somebody outside? As a day to day, like how do we see it? How do you see Dubai? If your friend asks you back home.
I think I would say it can be a lonely but very exciting place.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the way that I would describe it. Lonely because oftentimes you come here and they're just people from so many different places. It's hard to find your place. It's hard to find your tribe, especially when you come as an adult, because usually by the time you're an adult back home, you've already formed those solid friendships, and it feels like you have to start all over again. And I feel like as an adult, you sometimes are a bit afraid to do that.
Yeah.
So in that case, it can be lonely, and your workplace generally becomes your friendship circle. Generally.
Family.
Yeah. It can be exciting because recently I'd say Dubai is becoming more and more the center of kind of the world sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we just had Beyonce open up the Atlantis, and you have all these exciting things going on. There's a lot of things for you to do and opportunities for you to find, but you just have to be willing to take that step. If you're introverted, I feel like it's doubly harder. To me, Dubai feels more like LA than it does a New York or a London.
Okay. In what context?
It's just a little bit slower.
Okay.
But that's for me because I come from New York. For you, coming from Brisbane, it's probably like super fast.
Hustle bustle.
But that's just how perspective, how it works.
Gonna see it different.
But I think it's an exciting place if you're willing to make it exciting.
Okay.
I think it's what you make of it. If you come here with like no intention of meeting people, going out, trying different things, you're going to go back.
I agree. That couldn't be more true. Like as soon as you put yourself out there, that's what I love about it. As soon as you do put yourself out there, you cannot limit the opportunities that you'll face and the people that you'll meet, because if you just put yourself out there, Dubai will like carry you. So
and I also think as far as like health and fitness, it's like, it's crazy here.
That's right.
It's not the same back home.
No, definitely.
I mean, listen, New York is fit, but you walk a lot in New York. So it's like, people don't necessarily have to worry about the gym, if that makes any sense.
True. And how healthy are the food vendors on every corner?
Yeah.
Because
you know
from
what I mean?
I've seen, they look like, we've got kebabs, there's sausages,
Listen,
there's corn dogs.
they're amazing though. They're amazing.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely not
Just
on the
a quick
diet
stop
plan.
on the way to work, on the way back from the gym even.
Listen, my breakfast on the way to work on the train was a bagel with cream cheese, everything bagel with cream cheese and coffee. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's not too
It's not really the healthiest breakfast.
It's not the worst at the same time.
Yeah.
There could be worse. So, the Lifestyle Hub podcast is built
Yeah.
around inspiring stories of our guests. So, I wanted to kind of dig even a little deeper and
Yeah.
kind of, discuss something that might make you feel a little bit more vulnerable.
Okay.
And what would you say that is? Like, what is the one insecurity or the one vulnerability that you have that, I think you are quite honest on your platforms, but, maybe we just isolate that point and then we can kind of talk about how you overcame it or how you're working on that.
I think for me, always since I was young, self-esteem was a real struggle for me. And I think even at nearing 37, it still is sometimes. I am super confident when I'm on a microphone, when I'm on a stage, when I'm doing all that kind of stuff. But sometimes I have those moments where I'm like, do I belong? Am I pretty enough? Am I tall enough? Am I skinny enough? Am I this? You think of all those things. More so when I was younger. I mean, there were points in my life where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Like I really could not, because I was not happy with what I was seeing. Not because it may not have been beautiful, and I think everyone is beautiful, but I didn't think it was beautiful. It wasn't up to what I thought. And a lot of that has to do with Jeff was my first relationship. I never had that kind of attention from guys. So I didn't really feel beautiful or feel like I could be one of those girls. Like I was always a tomboy, quote unquote. Like, I was into sports and I was into wrestling and I was into all that kind of stuff while girls were watching like Dawson's Creek and all that, you know? So I was a very different, I guess, but it's been very hard sometimes to overcome that. And sometimes I'll look at a photo of myself and I'll still be like, no, that's not right. Like, I don't like this about myself. I don't like this about myself. And it's a constant struggle. And I have to say, I'm not saying this just because you're here, but I think being in the gym has helped build my confidence too, because you build a relationship with your body and you're forced to look at your body. I don't know if you've ever realized this, but when you take photos for before and afters, I struggle to look straight in the camera.
No, I haven't pinned your eye contact, but
I'll always look slightly up. I'll never look directly at it, because that makes me nervous, because I'm so vulnerable, because we're looking at my body shape and how the muscle is developing. And it makes me very, very nervous. But now training with you for 3 years now, consistently, learning what my body can actually do has made a large impact on where my self-esteem is too, because it's like, well, what are you going to say about this body? I know this body can do deadlifts like no other person can.
That's right.
You know?
Can.
So,
most certainly can.
So I think, but it's definitely still a struggle till this day.
And so you kind of say that health and fitness, is a great avenue to help begin the journey to coming to.
For sure, because I think that's the easiest way to build a relationship with your body. How else do you find out about your body?
That's right.
Like, what other way is there to find out? You can go to a doctor.
That's right.
And you can find out those kinds of things.
Metrics,
but like the physical appearance of your body. And I'm not saying you have to be super thin or whatever it is. It's just finding out how far you can push your body. That excitement when I do a deadlift. What did I do? Like 70?
You've done 70 kilos so far.
Like imagine me 3 years ago starting the gym.
More than your body weight.
Yeah. You telling me you're going to do a 70 kilo deadlift one day.
Yeah, there's no way you.
And there's no other way to look at that than being proud of yourself and what your body has accomplished.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a great way to build a relationship. You build a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
You build a healthy relationship with your body weight.
Yeah.
You helped me realize that it's okay to let that number go up on the scale, because it can mean muscle as well. It can mean a good thing as well.
Exactly.
And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to get their head around. So I feel like health and wellness is a great way to build that confidence.
And I think a lot of people who might suffer from a similar, insecurities and self-esteem, etc. I think yours is amplified because you're either on the stage, you're interviewing celebrities who, are flawless
Yeah.
from the outside.
Yeah.
Does that ever make you like, did that ever add to that insecurity? Like you're kind of there going, am I good enough for this? Like, you know, everyone, our eyes are on me. How do I feel right now? Did that ever like occur to you? Or once you were speaking and you had your job to do, you were like focused on that?
Yeah, I think I have to say it's kind of like a magic switch.
Yeah.
When I'm doing my job, I'm confident because I feel like I know how to do my job.
Yeah.
So those kinds of thoughts don't really enter my head. It may enter my head before or after when I'm maybe looking at footage.
Yeah.
But when I'm in this space, I'm not really thinking about it because that's one area where I know I'm confident in. Like if you give me a microphone, I know I'll be able to talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's like your go-to.
That's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So we've worked together now 3 years in the gym.
Yeah.
I didn't want to kind of harbor on that because a lot of people that follow both you and I can kind of see that every day today.
Yeah.
But I think it's important because your schedule's so busy. Your sleep is a really essential aspect to your performance in the morning. How does health, fitness, and wellness play an important role in your life? And that, you know, outside of gym as well.
Okay, so I think that hour in the gym that we have with you is my only hour in the day where I don't have to look at my phone.
Yeah.
It's literally the only hour. And I'm not looking at my phone because I need to be on Instagram 24/7. I need to be on Instagram 24/7 because it's my job.
Yeah.
I'm replying to people. I need to post certain things. People are asking me questions that I need to reply to.
Yeah.
So that 1 hour is like my hour of sanity. And if I'm angry that day or if I'm not feeling so great, I get to leave it out all on the gym floor and like push harder, whatever it is. It puts me in a good mood. We get to chat.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have a good crew that comes in. So it's nice. It's uplifting. So I think that's really important. And I try to prioritize that as much as I can without killing myself.
Without it being too much.
Yeah.
I mean, we have hit pretty decent consistency over the years.
And I think with food, with your knowledge, and I feel like you don't give yourself enough credit for this, but I have to say this. So with food, I think you've really taught me how to live your life and enjoy food, but not to overindulge. And that has made me happy. Because now I know how to balance my day. I know what food is going to fuel me for the rest of the day. Like I know what to do and what not to do. Because as I remember when I first joined, you were like, listen, you're not trying to be a bodybuilder. Why are you never going to eat carbs or sugar again?
Exactly.
Like that's terrible.
That's right.
You need to be able to enjoy your life too.
Yeah.
And with my lifestyle, sometimes I do need to go to a dinner. I need to go do these things and figure, you know?
That's right.
So I think, that's kind of helped too because it makes you feel better about your choices.
That's right. And I think I'd first seen, I think it was on a reel from one of the shows and you were doing push-ups.
Yeah.
And your push-ups were nothing like they are today. I mean, that was literally the reason I messaged you. I was like, we need to work on this. Then it must have sat with you for a few days and then it's like, look, let's meet next week and have a chat.
Yeah.
And then now you can pump out push-ups.
Yes.
I mean, you're pushing dumbbells above the head, deadlifts off the floor.
Yeah.
Still working on our chin-ups. But like, it's definitely come a long way. And I think it's an inspiration. And like a lot of my team, and this is like, I'm going to, you know, give Priti the credit that is definitely deserved that she won't admit to. But a lot of the crew that I work with daily have actually been inspired to come into the gym through you and watching your transition because, you know, yes, you're a radio presenter and you have, you know, the life that you show on that side, but it was so inspiring to see you come into the gym world, which was totally new to you. You weren't strong.
No,
be honest.
I wasn't. I really wasn't.
You came into a whole new environment and then not only have you dedicated yourself to improving at it, but you've actually, you know, actively focused on educating yourself, learning the program, and then taking the time to inspire other people. And like a lot of my crew are in there now, you know, because you inspired them to get there and they followed your channel and they came in and wanted to change it for the better. So, you know, that's a pretty cool thing. And did you have people ever come up to you and say like, you know, I know a lot of my crew always come up to you and kind of say, you know, they appreciate the motivation and whatnot.
I think so. I think the gym is really intimidating.
Yeah.
It's really intimidating. And a lot of people don't know how to walk inside a gym floor. And a lot of times people think getting a trainer means you're not going to be able to eat anything again. You're going to have to do all these things that you don't like. And yes, they're definitely, I say a lot of stuff to you on the gym floor. Right. That includes 4 little words. Like, are you kidding me? We have to do this. But, you know, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe if someone through me decides to walk through a gym door, amazing, because it's going to change your life.
Yeah.
For sure.
I love that. And that's such an inspiring thing, which leads us to our final question of the day, which is the golden question of the Lifestyle Hub podcast.
Okay.
And what do you think is key to living a happy and fulfilling lifestyle?
Finding your happy first. I think a lot of people search for happiness in others. For example, like they'll get into a relationship because they think it'll make them happier. It's not going to be happy unless you're happy yourself.
Yeah.
So I think solo, finding the things that make you happy and bring you joy is very necessary. And I think there's a lot of pressure to find that very early on.
Yeah.
And I feel like you don't really discover what makes you happy when you were 20 doesn't make you happy when you're 30, doesn't make you happy when you're 40. But it's about trying to find those things. For me, the standards that will always make me happy, the two things, that is not including anyone else in my world. Obviously, there's husband, there's dog, there's all that. Dance and what I do for a job. Those two things will always bring me joy.
Yes.
Those are my happy, you know, and I will always try to hold on to that for as long as I can possibly do so. I feel like once you find that, then you can be a happier person. You can't rely on someone else to make you happy. It's never going to work. You will always be unsatisfied because you haven't found your joy.
Yes.
So I'd say you have to find what makes you happy, and that's trial and error.
That's right.
Maybe and there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure. Like I loved going out in my 20s. Now what brings me happiness is sitting at home and just watching TV on the couch, you know, with Duke, my dog, next to me, Jeff next to me, and just us watching TV.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I would have said, let's go out to a club.
Yeah.
It's not me anymore, but that's fine, you know? I think that's what it is, just recognizing what makes you happy.
What makes you happy. Love that. And thank you for sharing that with us, Priti. So wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show and being so open and honest with all of our listeners. This is a pretty cool experience for me, especially. This is like another day for you, right? Yeah. But for me, this was a really incredible podcast. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you for those wanting to stay up to date with all things Priti Malik?
First, I'm going to say thank you. And I'm going to say I love that you're doing this because I feel like you have a lot of knowledge to share. And I think you're a great speaker.
Thank you.
And you get things across in a really cool, interesting way. And I love your perspective in life too. So this is amazing that you're doing this. And you can follow me at Priti Malik. That's PritiMalik.
Perfect. We'll make sure we do that, guys. Type that in. Guys, that is it for today with Priti Malik. What you can expect from our next episode, which will launch next Monday, will be the solo episode just with yours truly, me, myself, and I. We're going to myth bust the hype around fad diets and how they are damaging your mind and your body. Lastly, I do have a quick favor to ask before we go. If you're enjoying the podcast, please let me know. I have a few minutes to spare. I'd love you to read your reviews. This lets me know what listeners like or disliked about the show so I can make sure to give you content you all love to hear. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast in the app that you're using to listening so you can receive new episodes right when they're released. But before we go, one last shout out to, of course, our sponsors, Ghana Fitness Supplies, the leading home commercial gym specialist in the Middle East. Be sure to check them out on www.ghana.ae for all your fitness needs. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me, Jason Grima, on the Lifestyle Hub podcast. I'll catch you later.